Alright everybody, what is going on? My name is Nathan, ELEMENTofFROST. Welcome back to another episode review video of The Walking Dead. This is my weekly review for this week's episode of The Walking Dead, aired yesterday. This is The Walking Dead Season 5, Episode 3, Four Walls and a Roof. Now guys, this episode was absolutely epic. It was straight out of the comic book, and that's one of the reasons I loved it so much, is because it was straight out of the comic book. Basically, there was no difference, other than a few character swaps and stuff like that. There was really no difference between the comic book and this episode of The Walking Dead. So, anyways, to kind of start the review off, I just want to say again, guys, that this review obviously does contain spoilers for every episode of The Walking Dead up until now, including Season 5, Episode 3, Four Walls and a Roof. So if you guys haven't, caught up or anything like that, definitely make sure you do before watching my reviews, because you will probably hate me if you think this is a non-spoiler review, because it is. I spoil the shit out of every episode. So, here we go. Thoughts and opinions, guys. Here we go. So the episode starts off where we continued off of basically the last episode. Gareth and the Terminants, obviously with Bob. And basically, Gareth is trying to kind of lecture Bob, kind of give him an explanation of why he does this, why their group does what they do, like he's sitting here, like he's giving certain explanations of, bears can eat their own cubs, stuff like that. It's really weird, but at the same time, it sort of makes sense. I'm not saying that he's not a psychopath. I mean, obviously, there is something a little wrong with him. I mean, I guess that if you're really that hungry, anybody probably would do that. Now, I'm just talking rationality, guys. I'm not some psycho that should be locked up or something like that. I'm just saying, if it comes down to it and you're about to die and you're starving, you haven't eaten in, 5 to 6, 7 days, something like that, even longer. Because people can go out without food for quite a while. They probably struggled with it, They weren't like, oh, shit, we're out of beans, time to hunt somebody. I guarantee you they weren't like that. They probably ran out of food. They lasted as long as they possibly could. And then probably decided to eat his grandmother or something. Probably kind of rationalized it like, well, shit, she only got, a year or so left of her life because she's 84. No, I don't know. That's just that's kind of just a prediction of what maybe could have happened. I guarantee you it probably didn't. But anyways, anywho, we find out that they were actually making marks. Basically, they said he said to Bob they marked their way so that they could find their way back. And he says, "Stupid, right? I mean, back to what? Because obviously Terminus is completely, fucking gone at this point, because of Rick and the group just absolutely blew it to shit. Carol, mostly, but the group also did, kind of do some damage to it as well. But anyways, if you remember, back in Season 5, Episode 1 of the premiere, at the end, when I told you guys, and when Morgan came back, he pulled up to that sign, not pulled up, he wasn't in a car, he walked up to the sign, that said, no sanctuary. He walked up to that sign that Rick made, and then he seen a mark on the tree. Now, Gareth and the Terminants said that they marked their way there so they could find their way back. So, dollars to donuts, Morgan is following those marks. He's following that trail that Gareth and them left. So, I don't know about next episode, maybe the next episode after that. It'll probably take him a while, because he's walking obviously by himself. And anyways, the Terminants marked their way all the way to the church. They followed them all the way to the church. They marked them all the way to the church. So we have to assume that Morgan is going to be joining Rick's group pretty soon. Pretty soon. Because it shouldn't take him too long. And if he's following those marks, point to point, he should get there pretty well, probably into the 5th episode or so. Somewhere around there. Or, I guess there could be no time jump maybe until Season 5, Episode 8. Maybe he comes back in the mid-season finale, something like that. Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? Or maybe he's back now, considering what we see at the end of the episode, which we'll get into that, of course, as well. So anyways, Yeah, he kind of just explains to Bob basically the whole situation of why he's, doing what he's doing. Uh, if for example, bears, I'm pretty sure he says something like this. He says, if the bear dies, the cub dies as well. But if the cub dies and the bear survives, well, then you can always have another cub. Which actually kind of makes sense, to me at least. Uh, it kind of makes sense. Basically, they're saying, if if you eat somebody, you survive. But if you don't, most likely you're gonna die, and most likely everybody's gonna kind of stay in that same situation as you. Trying to find more food. Not people, but actual food. But anyways, moving on from that, that's how I kind of presume how he was trying to kind of say to Bob. Is that right there? Kind of comparing them to bears and stuff like that. So, anyways, Gareth basically tells Bob they were going to offer the survivors a choice to live with them or die. And then he explains for a while that he really wants to eat Carol, even though they saw her take off with Daryl in the car. So now Bob knows that Daryl and Carol has taken off in a car. So that's pretty good that at least someone knows that now, right? Because up until this point, no one actually knew that Daryl and Carol took off in a car. They kind of just took off. They didn't tell anybody or anything like that. But clearly, the Terminans saw them take off in the car, so that's good. At least Bob knows that they're not really in danger. But anyways, this is a little awesome. I might sound a little bit sadistic, but this is straight out of the comic book. Anyways, I'm not going to tell you guys the character in the comic book that this happens to, just in case you guys want to read the comic book. I kind of want it to be a surprise. It's the exact same shit that happens in the comic book, just to a different character, like I said before. But anyways, it's revealed to us now. Gareth basically says that he likes eating people, and he does these weird sadistic kind of looks that say eating women, they taste better than men. I don't really know exactly where that was going. But anyways, Bob starts crying / laughing. And then laughing. Did I just say laughing? Laughing. And then it turns on to full-on laughter. He just goes absolutely ape shit laughing. And in the last episode review, I kind of predicted that Bob was bitten. And guess what, guys? I was right. In the food bank, Bob was taken under the water by a walker, and ever since then, he seemed to be always kind of depressed, if you guys know what I mean. He always seemed to kind of not be himself, not be Bob, in all honesty. And then, obviously, we seen at the end of last episode, Season 5, Episode 2, not Episode 3, but Episode 2, we seen him in the woods, crying. He was looking at the other survivors, and then he got knocked out and obviously dragged into the forest. But nonetheless, he starts laughing, and this is straight out of the comic book. This is exactly what happened in the comic book. The character started laughing, basically said, "You idiots," and started laughing just hysterically. And it was a very eerie tone, too, because he was laughing kind of like a psychopath, I'm gonna die, but you just ate my tainted meat. So anyway, he's crying, he's laughing, he's saying, "You idiots, I've been bitten, you stupid pricks," and then he shows the bite on his right shoulder. And then basically the whole crowd starts throwing up and stuff like that. All of the Terminans and everything like that, everybody starts spitting out their food and freaking out. And Bob is yelling, "You're eating tainted meat." Everybody's throwing up, trying to puke up everything they ate. Everything like this, and Gareth basically says, calm down, we fully cooked it, nothing's gonna happen. The disease, we cooked it out, stuff like this. Kind of just trying to rationalize it, and kind of trying to reassure everybody in his group that they're not going to get sick, and they're not going to turn. So Bob starts screaming and laughing, saying, "You're eating tainted meat," and then Gareth kicks Bob in the face, basically knocking him out. So now it cuts off to the group. Basically, Sasha is out looking for Bob. We actually seen this in one of the sneak peeks. of The Walking Dead season 5 episode 3 from last week. We've seen this in the sneak peek. She's out looking for Bob. Uh, and she's kind of looking through the forest. She kind of sees a shadowy figure, doesn't really pay attention to it too much, keeps scanning, and the walker jumps out. She kills that walker. Another walker kind of comes up behind her, and Rick and Tyrese basically come to the rescue. Rick and Tyrese shows up, and she basically tells them that they were being watched. Obviously, that shadowy figure in the forest that kind of ran off into the woods. Rick thinks that Daryl and Carol might be with Bob, because obviously none of them know where Daryl and Carol are because they just drove off. And when Sasha gets back into the church, she gives Gabriel a very stern talking to, I guess that's how you could say it. She basically thinks he's responsible for Bob's disappearance and basically knows who's watching him. She says, who are you? Why did you bring us here? Stuff like this. And then she basically says that ever since you, 3 of our people are gone. And then she starts screaming, where are our people? We've seen this in the Walking Dead Season 5 trailer back in July and everything like this. She pulls her knife on him, and then he basically pleads with her, I have nothing to do with this. Rick steps up, kind of sends Sasha back a little bit. He steps up, confronts Gabriel with the evidence, my bad. He basically says, the scratches on the church, the girl with the glasses, he basically says, we've seen tons of scratches on the church. We've seen you'll burn for this on the church. And he's asking Bob, what are you burning? Not Bob. He's asking Gabriel. He says, what are you burning for? What are you burning for, Gabriel? And he it's kind of an intense scene. He's not saying it just like I did right there, but he's kind of screaming it. He's demanding pretty much answers. And he basically comes clean. He tells them that it was his congregation that came to the church. Very, very scared at basically the start of the apocalypse, only to find locked doors. He basically tells them that he always locks the doors at night because, he obviously doesn't want a walker to get in the middle of the night while he's sleeping, and he can't ever open those doors at nighttime. It's very risky. Some survivor could come in that's bitten and he not know, and then, kind of take down the whole thing. And, everything could get messy if you open your doors at night. You never open your doors at night, even now in the real world. You don't do that. Anything could really happen. I mean, if you live in a neighborhood kind of like that now. If you live in a neighborhood, obviously, some sort of rich neighborhood, stuff like that. I mean, personally, I would still keep my doors locked, but that's a little less riskier. But nonetheless, I'm not going to go on here about a rant on current day, real life right now. But anyways, yeah. So he basically says he locked the doors at night. There were so many people that were scared, and they just got louder and louder, drawing in walkers. And basically, walkers came. The dead came, and they attacked them. And they basically screamed Gabriel's name as they were dying. And anyways, he basically says, the Lord sent you here to finally punish me. I'm damned. I was damned before. I always lock the doors. I always lock the doors. And then basically he collapses on the floor when basically a whistle is heard outside. Now, what's going to happen here, guys? We don't know. Sorry, I had to take a drink there real quickly. But anyways, whistle is heard outside. They look outside and see Bob lying on the ground, pretty much lifeless. He is still alive, but he's pretty much lifeless. I think he's probably still knocked out. Someone blew the whistle after they laid him on the lawn, which obviously we can assume that was one of the Terminans, maybe Gareth, maybe somebody else. Who knows who it was really? But it was definitely somebody who blew the whistle, kind of just to let them know that here's Bob back. And basically, they run out, they grab him, kill some walkers, and they get back inside. Rick is about to kill a walker, and somebody in the forest shoots the walker before Rick can kill it. And then Rick kind of starts firing back into the woods, and he says, get back inside. And then basically, Bob tells them what happened when he was inside and where he was. He tells them that Gareth told him about Daryl and Carol driving off. And then basically they say, Bob says that when I woke up in the forest, they were eating my leg right in front of me. like it was nothing, like it was absolutely no big deal at all. And then basically, they offer pain pills to Bob, and he basically says, save him. I don't need him. And then he shows him the bite wound. Basically saying, I got bit earlier in the food bank. He says this to Sasha, and this just, in my opinion, it filled Sasha with just so much rage at one time. It was kind of hard to contain, in all honesty. So anyways, yeah, he tells him that Gareth said that Daryl and Carol drove off. Basically, Gabriel tells Rick that the school is just a 10-minute walk away. He basically thinks they're at the school. And then Gabriel kind of offers Bob a sofa, a couch in the back room. So they kind of go in and lay him down on that couch. Gabriel tells Rick that school is 10-minute walk away because that's where they think they are. Abraham, well, technically that's where they know they are because Bob kind of knew where it was and stuff like that. He kind of seen the window with a bunch of kid decorations in on the window and stuff like that. So he kind of assumed that it was a school. It was definitely a school that he was near. Not in the school, of course. He was kind of like around the outskirts of it and stuff like that. And he basically told them that they were at the school, and Gabriel tells them that it's just a 10-minute walk away. And Abraham kind of confronts everybody. He tells them that they have to leave. Eugene is in danger. Rick won't leave without Carol or Daryl. He basically says, they're coming back. Tara basically offers to go with Abraham if they agree to stay one more day. Abraham says they'll stay if Glenn and Maggie come as well. And Rick says, no, they're not going with you. And then Rick and Abraham pretty much almost beat the shit out of each other. It didn't happen, but it almost happened. Basically, Rick said, if you want to go, but you're not taking the bus. And then, it was a pretty much heated argument and stuff like this. And then Glenn steps up, basically between them both, and he says that if you stay and help us out with this, I will go with them. That he and Maggie will go with them if they stay a day. And then all parties agree. Basically, Rick is kind of weary to it because obviously he doesn't want to lose Glenn and Maggie. But they all agree, so Abraham stays for, he says, 12 more hours. Rick makes the case basically for attacking instead of waiting. Sasha volunteers to go. Tyrese tries to talk her into staying because he's basically reminiscing to back when Karen died, obviously at the beginning of season 4. He wished that he had time with Karen, before she died, but he didn't. He didn't get that luxury, but Bob is currently still alive. He is bitten, so obviously he is going to die, but Bob is still alive right now. She has time to stay with him, basically saying, she has time to stay with him and wait for him to basically die. You know what I mean? Like, you want to spend this time with him instead of going to get revenge, is basically what I'm saying. That's a luxury that Tyrese never have, and he's trying to not let his sister rob her of that. Rob herself of that, basically. So anyways, yeah, that happens. He basically says that, he wants to attack instead of waiting. Basically, Rick and his team leave the church and they head into the woods. And as they basically exit, as they leave, because they're trying to go find the Terminans at the school, the hunters, the Terminans, arrived from the right. They kind of came out of the forest. They were definitely watching them. They were waiting for them to send out a group and go after the hunters. That's why they returned to Bob. They returned to Bob because he wanted them to tell them where they were at the church. And then basically, as they left, obviously they were in the woods pretty much close to the church watching them. And as they left, obviously the people that are left in the church don't really... obviously there's less numbers now in the church, so that's why they want to come in the church and take them out. So that's what they were waiting for. They were waiting for the stronger group to come and go look for the Terminans with all the guns, stuff like that. And then they sort of arrived at the church to take care, quote, take care of the other people that were left. So anyways, the hunters break in. The group is hiding in one of two rooms at the back. Basically, Carl pulls his gun. They're all sitting in one room, and it's to the left. Now, anyways, they're about to go in the right. Gareth and the hunters, they're about to go in the right. And he knows who's there. Basically, he knows that Rick took most of the guns, and they came to the locked doors. And he's about to go to the right door, and Judith starts crying. Unfortunately. Unfortunately, Judith starts crying and basically giving away what room they are in. And as they are about to breach, basically, Gareth says, this is your last warning. Come out with your hands up, put your weapons down, stuff like that. It's pretty much, you probably should surrender now. We pretty much got this door surrounded, and, we'll kill everybody. So, as they're about to breach the door, because they didn't respond, so they're about to breach the door, and pew pew, basically. The sound basically of a silent pistol, a pistol with a silencer on it, basically kills the two guys by the door, rather. There was two guys about to breach the door, and somebody shot them dead. And then Rick basically says, in the darkness, we don't see Rick yet, but he says in the darkness, he says, put your weapons down, and basically put your weapons on the ground. And then Gareth basically says, no, Rick, you put your weapons. We could fire right through that door and kill everybody. And then Rick shoots another shot at Gareth and actually takes off two of Gareth's fingers. They just pop off. And he's kind of sat there. He's kind of sitting there now with like two fingers that are stumps, basically. And anyways, yeah, that happens. Kind of shoots off his fingers, stuff like that. Rick tells him to drop their guns and kneel. And Abraham's kind of reinforcing it, you don't have a choice, do it now. Gareth basically talks to Rick. He basically says, you could have killed us when you came in. There must be a reason for that. And Rick says, plainly and blatantly, we didn't want to waste the bullets. Gareth tries to explain what they've done. He basically says, we did originally take in people, we helped people, we saved people, stuff like that. And he's like, no point in trying to bag, right? And then Rick says, yeah, right. And, Gareth kind of pleads with them, if you let us go, our paths will never cross again. I promise you that. And then Rick basically said, no, but you'll cross someone. And then he said, in a Rick voice, here we go, I'm going to attempt this. You try to do this to anyone, right? I don't know. Is that good? I doubt it. But anyway, besides, and then he basically says, besides, I already made a promise. Now, if you guys think back to Season 5, Episode 1, when they were kind of kneeled over the trough, basically, Gareth kneels down to Rick. He basically says, what's in the bag in the forest? And he says, all these weapons, 44 Magnum, assault rifles, compound crossbow, and a machete with a red handle. And then he said that was what he was going to use to kill Gareth. And then basically he says, no point in bagging, and he says, no. Besides, I already made you a promise. And then he pulls his red-handled machete out of his sheath and hacks Gareth to bits. And the rest of the crew as well, Sasha, Sasha, Abraham, and I think it was Michonne, actually, the one that did the last one. They basically just started beating up all of them. There were only a couple left, and they brutally bashed their skulls in. Basically, it was Sasha with a knife taking out the guy that Tyrese was supposed to actually kill back in the first episode, but apparently didn't. Michonne was taking out a girl, and Abraham was also hitting another guy with the stock of his gun. Basically beating the shit out of everybody, and after the whole thing, everybody is dead, and the others kind of look in horror, and basically they kind of realize that it's a brutal world. Kind of no matter what you do, really. But anyways, when it's all over, Michonne looks down and finds her katana in one of the hunter's packs. She picks it up, and, I think there's kind of a brief moment of relief that she finally found it again. Because no matter what, she said before that she didn't miss the sword, but you can kind of tell that she sort of did, and now it's back to, ass kicking Michonne basically, and I'm pretty excited for that. That she got her sword back. It was kind of a moment of relief, if you guys know what I mean. Like, I was kind of happy in the end, really. That's how I kind of felt. But anyway, she finds her katana. Rick, basically once again covered in the blood, and of someone that he's basically killed, is kind of standing next to Sasha, and basically just says, "It could have been us." He's kind of trying to reprimand his actions. He's kind of trying to rationalize it in a way that, they chopped up Bob's leg. They ate it in front of him. And anybody they would have done this to, so it could have been us. He basically says, it could have been us because, he's trying to rationalize why they just killed him. They can't survive. That is not a group of people that should survive in this new world. They're too much more bad than good, basically, is what I'm trying to say. So anyways, Gabriel comes out and stands in front of the bloodstained wall and basically views the carnage, and he says, "This is the Lord's house," and this is basically where the title of the episode comes from, of Season 5, Episode 3. Maggie says, "No, it's just 4 walls and a roof." Basically, churches mean nothing anymore in the zombie apocalypse, because, in all honesty, just to kind of get off a little topic right now, I'm not going to change this into a big debate, so if you guys want to, definitely don't comment down below. I don't want this to turn into some religion debate or anything like that, but I am atheist. And anyways, if this was to actually happen in real life, you got to rationalize somehow. I'm just trying to put it in perspective of basically what she's saying. It's 4 walls and a roof. Churches mean nothing anymore. Because if there was a God, he wouldn't have let this happen, this whole apocalypse happen. Anyways, I'm just going to basically leave it at that. I don't want to go into any more detail than that. So, anywho, that happens. That's where the episode title comes from. And the next day, basically the group says goodbye to Bob. Bob asks Rick and Judith to stay behind. He basically thanks Rick. He says, that he's kind of sticking with what he told Rick on the way to the food bank, basically saying, nightmares end, but they shouldn't end who you are. And then he looks at Judith, and he basically says, just look at her and tell me the world isn't going to change. He's basically saying, go to Washington and get this thing done, Rick. That's basically what he's saying to Rick right now. Go to Washington, get this thing done for her. Anyways, it was a really inspirational moment, kind of. Not really inspirational, but kind of emotional, I suppose. I kind of felt it a little way. I don't ever really feel too much, because I'm not really that type of person, but it was kind of a special moment, I guess, is what you could say. But anyways, that happened. Basically, they kind of sort of shake hands for a minute, and then basically it cuts to a next scene where Sasha is watching over Bob. He wakes up. She basically asks him what the good that comes out of this bad is. Basically what can come out of this, and he doesn't answer at first. But anyways, Bob basically says, I was dreaming about you smiling at me. Again, another kind of emotional moment. I didn't really feel it too much here, but anyways, it was kind of another emotional moment. And then she basically asked Bob, what good can come out of the bad that is this world, basically. And he doesn't answer, basically. And we kind of get the feeling that he's passed, and he has. He has died. Bob's dead now. Obviously, he's going to be coming back as a walker pretty soon. She kind of breaks down in tears, kind of starts crying. She pulls out a knife and just, she can't do it. And Tyrese basically entered the room. He basically says, give it here now. And then he sends Sasha away and basically stabs Bob in the head, takes care of Bob. So sadly, Bob is no more. But anywho, that's that. Now outside, Abraham, Rosita, Eugene, Glenn, and Maggie and Tara, they're basically getting ready to leave. Because obviously he said that if you stay for 12 more hours, we'll go with you, stuff like that. Rick still has to wait for Carol and Daryl to come back, and basically he gives Rick a map, and Rick basically promises to follow. He basically says, come to Washington, And he says, we will. You can kind of tell that everyone's a little uneasy about splitting the group up and stuff like this. But anyways, they drive off. They kind of brush it off. And Rick opens the map. The route is basically marked from Georgia to Washington. It's kind of a whole kind of straight line type deal that he's basically kind of meant to follow. When Daryl and Carol come back, they're going to go to Washington. They're going to follow that route and catch up to them. Basically, there's a note on the bottom of the map that says, "Sorry, I was an asshole. Come to Washington. The new world's going to need Rick Grimes." This is a really inspirational moment coming from the comic book, because this is sort of what we've seen in the comic book as well. It wasn't directly written on a map or anything like that in the comic book, but basically to convince Rick in the comic book, he says, because at the first, Abraham, again, was a little bit of an asshole, and he basically says, "Sorry, I was an asshole. Come to Washington, and the world's going to need Rick Grimes." Basically saying, he's this leader that kind of needs to lead the world through this in a way, if you guys know what I mean. Like, Rick is this really inspirational sort of leader that takes no shit off of anyone, but at the same time knows what to do when it comes to the sake of kind of how to save the world. We haven't really seen much of that yet in the Rick Grimes the TV show, but come the comic book, man. If you guys read it up until current date, you guys know exactly what I mean. But anyways, Tyrese is digging a grave. Rick goes to help him. He basically says, Tyrese, he kind of questions him, I never asked how it was for you getting to Terminus. And Tyrese basically says, it killed me. And then after a little bit, after digging and stuff like that, and Rick basically says, no, it didn't kill you. And anyways, late that night, it was that part right there with Tyrese and Rick kind of digging the grave. It was kind of symbolism of sort of sort of looking back to season 4 in the prison when Tyrese was kind of digging the grave and Rick came over, stuff like that. But anywho, it was kind of just, it was sort of, I think, kind of looking back to that moment. If anybody else watches the TV show, from the start and stuff like that, it kind of brings back a moment, really. But anyways, late that night, Gabriel comes out front and finds Michonne on watch. He basically tells her that now that he's come clean, he can hear the people screaming. Michonne tells him basically that it won't stop because she knows a little bit about it. Those 2 guys that she tied up as walkers, cut the jaw off, the arms and stuff like that. She basically knows a little bit about it. She tells him that it won't stop, but it won't be all the time. And there's a noise that comes from the woods. She kind of pulls her sword. Gabriel kind of retreats back into the church, obviously, because he can't really defend himself. Michonne draws her sword. She walks towards the sound, and Daryl comes out of the forest. She smiles, but it kind of fades when she kind of sees Daryl distraught. And she basically says, "Where's Carol?" And then Daryl turns, looks back into the woods, and just says, "Come on out." And then that's where credits end. So the way they're kind of leading it on for us to believe it's not Carol, in there. If it was Carol, why wouldn't they just kind of show it? You know what I mean? Like, there's sort of a cliffhanger, so if it was Carol, why would there be some sort of a cliffhanger like that? You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of leading us on to believe that it's maybe somebody else. Now, I kind of have a few theories of who it could be. For one, it's Beth. I don't really see that happening, though, in all honesty, because next episode is supposed to be solely pretty much on Beth. Now, I don't know if next episode, maybe it's going to be some sort of a flashback. Maybe Beth actually does come back to the group, and maybe she's going to be telling her story or something like that. It could be sort of a flashback, her kind of telling the story of what happened. That could happen, but at the same time, I don't know. I don't know what exactly is going to happen. Maybe Carol is staying behind because of, she wanting to kind of hold down that place where they found Beth or, something like that. I don't know exactly where Carol is, but I assume that in the woods behind Daryl, it is not Carol. That's what I'm assuming. But it also could be another guy by the name of Morgan. Maybe he caught up. Maybe he caught up with those hunters' marks on the trees. Maybe he caught up and finally found somebody, and Daryl's basically bringing him back to his camp. I don't know. Anything could really happen. I don't think it's Carol, though. I think that's one One big thing that I don't think it is, if I was to bet on it, I don't think it's Carol. But I don't know who exactly it is. Two possibilities could be Beth, kind of telling her story backwards, kind of flashback and stuff like that. Or it could be Morgan. Or it could be somebody completely different that I don't know. But anyways, that's basically it for this week's episode review of The Walking Dead Season 5, Episode 3, Four Walls and a Roof. Hopefully you guys did enjoy. If you did, feel free to hit the video up, the like, share it with your friends. Tell me in the comment section below what you guys thought of the episode. I just did that very fast, probably faster than I ever did before. But anyways, yeah, definitely feel free to leave it in the comment section below. What you guys thought of this week's episode of The Walking Dead. Can't wait to next episode, man. I'm really excited to see what happens with Beth. The sneak peeks and stuff have kind of shown Beth in the hospital that we've seen in the Walking Dead Season 5 trailer, so I'm pretty pumped for that. Hopefully you guys are too. Stay tuned tomorrow, obviously, for another video, and the next day. And then the next day after that, obviously, which is going to be October 30th, is going to be my episode predictions video for The Walking Dead Season 5, Episode 4. I don't exactly know what it is. Hold on, I'm going to look it up. Hold on. So yeah, this Thursday, I'm going to be doing my prediction video for this week's upcoming episode of The Walking Dead. It is going to be my predictions for Season 5 of The Walking Dead, Episode 4. It's called Slab Town. Okay, it's called Slab Town. Now, I don't know exactly what this means, but we'll probably dig into it in our prediction video. That's usually what I do. So stick around till then, and yeah, subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the video up a like if you did enjoy, and I'll talk to you guys on the next one. Alright guys, later.